I do that too, by the way.
So you were talking about, hearing these chord, and obviously your son Dylan has like the super ability to hear because you exposed him to the sounds at such an early age. When I think of myself, I spent like 10 years from 12 to 22 not learning any theory and ear training. And I was able to make just by reacting to, well, great music said by other people. And I felt like it was emotive. But I didn't know anything about theory. Whatever I was playing, I couldn't explain that. And there came a point where like jazz came to my life and I felt like I needed to learn if I wanted to improvise. Because I could compose, but I couldn't improvise. Back then I felt like theory would hinder my creativity, but that's like now that's just silly to me. Me back then I was like, I'm just trying to make songs here, and if I will get into something else, it would just like take away everything. But it actually aids it very well, especially ear training. So
Yeah.
when I got into theory, there was this disconnect because I thought theory was all there was. And later, when I started brushing up on it, later 4 months later, I got into ear training, and I remember for the first time somebody told me, what is that interval? And I was like, you could really know that it goes somewhere, and I was like blown away, and my whole life was shattered. Like I was like, what have I been doing for like 10 years? And like every accomplishment I made, I felt like it was totally destroyed because I wasn't aware of whatever I was doing. So with the help of your videos and all the other people, I learned to hear stuff in my head and everything. So when you say like Dylan could hear like superimposed chord upon a chord that is not even present there, I understand that you could literally produce any sound in your head. If I say Rick, you can hear my sound, my voice and my timbre and everything in your head. But how do you amplify it? Because I have a lot of theories about it, and I've learned a lot about like amplifying it. But what's your take on if you just want to amplify that sound? You can hear it, but you want to amplify it so much that it feels like you're hallucinating and the sound is in the room.
Actually a fantastic question. How do you amplify it? That's a great video right there.
You should make it.
Yeah, no, that's a really, and that's actually really phrased well too, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to amplify your inner ear or your mind's, your imagination. How imagine? If I think of the note G, for example, in my head that note is a G. Now, when I don't know that I'm positive on that, because as I've gotten over 50 years old, that note pitches drift down
Has sort
as
of
you
moved
age.
away because of old age.
Yes, I'd like to think of it as middle age.
Yeah, Mill. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna check it though here.
Yeah.
See, I was slightly below it, just slightly, but like I said, it's become inaccurate, and I have to reinforce it more to in order to make it not only loud but accurate. Because I mean, it doesn't matter whether you can hear pitches absolutely. I mean, in some places they tune to A42 in Europe, for example. Pakistan, they might tune to A45. And, when Beethoven lived, they found tuning forks from that time period that was 421.6. There's a piano builder that built pianos for Mozart and Beethoven. And in the Baroque era, they tuned to 415, they think. And they don't know for sure. I mean, how would they really
And
know?
it's all relative because whatever is playing around you, you just adjust to it.
Correct. So the most important thing is just to be able to understand the relationships of what you hear and then amplifying it to a place where you can, if I go da da, and I know the interval is a fifth, perfect fifth descending, but I don't necessarily need to know that it's from G to C. I just need to know that it's a fifth.
Yeah.
because relative, it's more important to understand the relative relationship of the pitches.
Yeah, I was just talking
So,
about exactly that with my brother today because you could just transpose it to anything. The main thing is to know where the progression or the melody or the rhythm is going.
yeah.
So a sub question to this is about harmony. Personally, I feel like, and I've asked like many people about it. I asked Ben Monder about it, and he was like, "Well, you can hear harmony in your head. Like you play it like 50 times, and then in your head." I was like, "Yeah, but I feel like I can hear melodies very clearly, but when I think of two notes, just two notes, like not even harmony, just any of the two notes, I feel like producing them at the same time, I can arpeggiate them, but producing them at the same time comes very hard."
It's very difficult.
What do you think? Like, what's your approach on getting to that point where you could stack any number of notes, or just start with a few notes and be able to navigate those notes, be able to move those voices?
Well, being able to if you can recognize them instantly, then you can hear them in your head is the way that I see that. I mean, obviously you can recognize a major chord when you can hear it, um, but when you're talking about contrapuntal lines and things like that, that's very difficult to do. Um, so, I mean, Ben Monder may say that, but it is not easy to do.
What he meant, like, if you think it's not coming to you easy, maybe then it's not so easy because we all live differently the way we see music. For you, it might be easy. For me, it might be hard, and there's so much stuff in our brains that goes that we can't really relate to another person, even though we know that we could learn these things, but everybody has a different learning process, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that people's aptitude for that, obviously that improves with practice. I call it predictive hearing, really. That if you hear a note and then you imagine another note at the same time, then you imagine a third note that's happening, whether it's there two are stacked and then one happens after. Well, the two are holding. That's these are all that's predictive hearing. That's actually part of my ear training course that's coming out has a
Great.
lot of elements like that to help people hear not just sonorities, harmonic and melodic, but actually hear things before they happen and know what to expect, and
Yeah.
of hearing ahead. And that's the hardest thing to do, hardest thing to imagine.
Okay, I want to change gears and ask you about a word that is very meaningful to me. Slow. Because when I was young, I had like a lot of learning problems, and you could say I was slow. And I left school at like 12 or 13, and I never went back. And I just like rewired my brain to learn stuff online and stuff. And I think at the same time I was learning music, so that rewired my brain in a way. But now slow has a different meaning for me because a lot of people are trying to go really fast, and what in turn does that is they don't achieve anything. Like when you're saying, "Oh, I have to learn all this ear training and theory," and they just like watch like a bunch of videos, just like, and don't expose themselves to them enough to one subject, and they just go like, "Why isn't it happening?" And on other hand, there's this person who's going really slow, meditatively really slow, and he just gets it all. So I want you to talk about like the importance of slowness.
Slow is very important. I am always chastising my kids because they don't do things slower. They don't really think about what they're doing. They're too reactive to things. They're not thinking really consciously, being present in the moment and thinking about what they're doing, whether they're what they're seeing, what they're hearing. And with music, you have to take the time to process things and to really learn them. People always ask me, how do you remember all this stuff? And I said, well, it's not remembering. It's really, how do you not forget it? Is really the that's, or how do you learn all this stuff? Well, learning is not forgetting, really.
Yeah, I think of it
So
like, as you said, like they're very reactive, and I relate to that. Like it's more about like going from reactive to responding. So you're not reacting immediately, like somebody says something to you, and you just are filled with emotions, and you just say something to somebody, and you later feel like I could have put it better. But if you just take like a few seconds, and you're just responding then. And
I think that honestly, I've changed in my as I've done my live streams, for example. You can probably see
yeah,
that I've changed. I don't get as worked up about things
yeah,
as I used to.
yeah. But
I don't take offense.
yeah, I mean, there you could say there's improvement, but I enjoyed like both tricks, because it's I mean, at one point like life, you could see life as meaningful because we put meaning into it, but in one sense life is meaningless. So when you're expressing yourself and people are like just being reactive, and that's why you get pissed off sometimes, because people are just saying stuff, and you just see that and you just go like, okay, ban.
I I used to have no tolerance for that, and I know that people just now want to use whatever they want to say something, but they don't really have any reference point. They don't know. They'll compare someone to someone that's a completely ridiculous comparison. Yes, they both play the guitar. That's the only point of reference between the two.
You know what's
But
interesting is like when I join your live chat, I notice that, because that's my nature, that I join in and then I listen to the conversations that are happening by people and you, and then I say something. But I feel like a lot of people just join the conversation and say the first thing they have in mind, and
yeah,
they're not respectful of what the conversation is about. It's like joining a party and just start doing your thing. You don't know like the environment you're in, and you don't settle in until you do it. And that's also like part of like of all the slowness. You have no idea like how much I've learned from your channel directly and indirectly, because especially because of the Rick Beato live, because I made friends through that, and and I heard like so many stories. It's like getting into your mind and just like researching all what your mind is about, but and then seeing it through my eyes. When I read a book, it's like it just overtakes me and I become that book, but later on that book just like fades away and some things light up that are mine.
well, that second channel is really a place where you can really get into depth on things, and I think that people know me there, and I know when you come on, I
You know
address
those
you.
people because
I
you
know
know
those
their
people.
names, and you chat with them and you talk, you answer their question, and you have a conversation with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I know them. I know what I know. I know a lot about them from the questions they've asked, because I've got a really good memory for that. When you come on, I greet you, and
Yeah.
when I see you on there, and
And I
when
think that's I think like
you know, that,
that's great because you are developing something meaningful. Because if people don't help each other in that way, I mean, your videos are incredibly helpful for the whole world. The first time I saw you, I think it was because of Dylan, but you had like less than 50,000 subscribers, and now you're close to 1 million, and you are changing the world, if whether somebody wants to believe it or not, because you are taking all yourself out. It's not just like jazz, it's not just philosophy, it's you talk deep stuff about your family and relations and beyond music. So I think that's very important, and a lot of people are afraid to do that as well. I think because they just stick to what they think they should say.
yeah, I don't worry about that. I say what's on my mind, and I never I don't ever regret anything I say. I've never had anything where, people said, "Have you ever had to do an apology video?" And I said, "No." I say what's on my mind. Some people might not like it, but I think most people really respect that I'm completely honest.
Yeah.
In whatever I talk about. If I think that there's, if I'm outraged by something, I'm outraged and people know it. Or if I like a kind of music, I'm unapologetic about it. Nirvana, for example, like, how do you like his voice, Kurt Cobain's voice? I like the sound of his voice. I think he was an incredibly emotional singer, and he was one of the best melody writers ever in rock.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with thinking that, because as I remember once you told me that you could teach anybody anything, but you can't teach taste.
Can't teach taste.
And that's the thing, because you can teach your mind, but you can't teach what you feel. I see that as that. You can't teach how you feel when you listen to Nirvana. You have to get into it and see if you can relate to it. If you can't, that's fine. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.